Hi, my name is David Chung. I'm a sophomore at SLU. The pervasive identity I personally identify with is basically I consider myself Asian American. I was born and raised in California, so I take a lot of influences from both Chinese and American culture, and I think that for a lot of people that are Asian American, it's really a balance between the two things. It's really you kind of figure out, you kind of work with what you grow up with this Chinese culture, and then you kind of basically a little like assimilate to the people around you. And so it's really just, for me, it was just figuring out what that balance was and what I felt comfortable with my identity. SLU's been a very different experience for me, especially coming from California. I always tell the story to a lot of people, but it's a very different environment, diversity-wise. There's a lot of different types of people. I feel that California was a little bit more diverse, and like they're a little bit more open-minded. Here it's I can definitely feel that I am a minority, and coming to here, like I kind of didn't think of it like that, and I kind of I thought of it as, you know, like this is a way for me to open up, but you know, like in a sense I did feel that sense of that I was a minority. And that wasn't necessarily a bad thing. It was just really a new experience, and I'm glad that I came here just because I was able to really like experience those things. You know, I was like, able to experience the diversity. And for SLU itself, like I think SLU actually does a pretty good job. Like I kind of feel that it does, in a sense, represent kind of the world in a sense, because I mean, the exact proportions of race is not exact to what the world is, but at the same time it's actually pretty makes sense. You know, like in California, a lot of them, it's like there's a ton of Asian Americans, and I think that is not really representative of how the world actually looks like. And I think Missouri actually is pretty good in how it actually does look like. Like, you know, Asian Americans are a minority. Given my background, I have not really forced myself to assimilate, because coming into the school I was actually pretty comfortable with my identity. I know for a lot of people that live in the Midwest, it's not that's not the case. You know, they've been living with assimilation for a long period of time, and for me it's like I kind of knew what my identity was beforehand, so I really like stuck to it. And for me it was kind of like, it kind of sucked because like my freshman year there was not a lot of Asian Americans to bounce off, so I did feel alone in that sense. You know, like you realize that some people really don't understand your culture, and they like you can't always go out and just be like, oh, like, do you want to go get bubble tea? You know, bubble tea is a very traditional thing, like for Asian Americans, and you know, like back home, it's you know, it's pervasive throughout the whole society that, you know, that's a normal thing. But here, people kind of look at you weirdly, and they're kind of like, oh, I never tried that before, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just the fact that they haven't been exposed to the experiences and the same cultures as I have. And so I think that my job here at SLU is actually more so to educate others, actually, because like I have been very connected with the Asian American Association here on campus, and so I think my job more so is to educate other people about it, those that are kind of still worrying about their identity and still thinking it as a huge issue, or the people that just don't understand the culture, and it's just really exposing them and really allowing them to understand what it is to be Asian American. You know, like I identify myself specifically as like Asian American and male, and I mean there's a lot of things that comes with both things. You know, like as in society, Asian American males are really kind of castrated. They're really not represented as a very strong figure. They're not given lead roles. You know, like talking about, you know, Fresh Off the Boat, it's like that's a completely new thing that when they're like in media, they're acting in major roles, and it's a new thing, and I think that's something that still needs to be developed. But I mean, for the people that really don't understand what the problem is with that, or what the issue is, it's just, you know, Asian Americans they're not getting that representation, and it really is a progression. As an Asian American male, I feel that society's representation of, you know, like me in general, there's a lot of stereotypes, there's a lot of labels that are placed onto me. Like, of course, like there's the stereotype that Asian American males are going to be doctors, they're going to be like lawyers, engineers, etc., computer engineers or computer scientists, and like those stereotypes. Of course, all stereotypes are generalizations, and I really think that we need to progress into like an age where that's not a thing. Of course, like these generalizations don't define who we are. We're not labeled as such. Yeah, for sure. Like on SLU's campus, I've like faced kind of like they basically question me, or like they make assumptions about me. So a lot of times, like even my own close friends, like they would say, you know, like, oh, but you're Asian, and that really takes me off sometimes, just because they have that like pre-existing idea of me, of what I am and what I'm capable of, and you know, of course, we all don't fit that mold, and so like there has been times where oh, like I would talk about like my grades, or I'd talk about my struggles in school, and the excuse that they give me is, oh, but you're Asian, and that's for some reason that qualifies everything, or that justifies any action that I do, and of course that's just not right. And then like other times I've like faced, just in general, like types of like, and other times that I've faced discrimination, you know, it's just like I completely unexpected sometimes. It's just people would make comments that are definitely unnecessary. There was a time when I was actually doing some volunteer work, and I was like, you know, it's like we were canning for money, and this lady like that I asked money for was just basically like, oh, look at that ugly Asian. And for me, it was like, I was really shocked. I didn't know that was like ugly and Asian can be put together. And so I questioned like my own identity, and sometimes it's not like I didn't like question it to the point where I like was like, oh my gosh, is Asians ugly? Like I just questioned why society thought like that, and why it seemed normal for someone to say that. And so that's why like I always try to advocate for just kind of education of an understanding of experience, because like I mean, for me, the most important thing is that you at least like, you don't need to completely like follow it, but you need to be able to tolerate it, and you need to be able to understand where someone's coming from, because you know everyone has their own experiences. Everyone is really everything is based on someone's experience, and you cannot like invalidate someone's experiences and their life stories just because of a generalization or a label that they have. And so that's a message I would definitely like to give out to just people in general, just to not have those labels, and to just kind of stray away from discrimination, of course. So that's definitely there's definitely a problem I feel with some Asian Americans. They kind of they take the model minority myth and they really apply it to themselves. I know for a fact that when I was younger, I applied it to myself. You know, it was just something that made you feel a little bit better. You feel like you're better than other people. But to be honest, when like as I grown older, I really realized that that doesn't really help the whole problem that we have in this world about discrimination. It's really just about being in the state of solidarity with other minorities. Because to be honest, it's like we're all working towards the same things, the same goals, and to suggest that like someone's race is better than another's really throws us back a lot of like many years of social justice work. And so specifically for Asian Americans that kind of believe that, I mean, I just feel that they just need to have experience, like just have a lot more experience within like facing discrimination, and I feel like there's an inherent privilege that they do feel. And I mean, I don't want to bash on them, but it's just like they need to kind of step away from that privilege and understand what the social impact it does have, because it's a very huge impact. And I think that once they realize that, they'll be able to really not put themselves away. And I think the main source is the main sources for them is, you know, their parents. You know, like for me and my own parents, like they would look down upon other races, and nowadays they call them out on it, of course. And I'm just like, you know, you can't do that. But I feel like, you know, we get a lot of our influences from our parents. A lot of our parents are they just immigrated, you know, and they're experiencing American lifestyle for the first time, and they just have a sense of pride because they want themselves to, they want their kids and they want themselves to feel a lot stronger and like have a lot more pride in their ethnicity. And so I feel like that's kind of where the origin comes, and then the stereotypes also propagate all of those, like just all the negative negative stereotypes in general. But yeah, just like a message for them. It's just, it's like try to see that other's perspective, see it from a different ethnicity, see it from a different class of privilege, economic status, sexual orientation, stuff like that, and just try to understand that it's not really just about being better. It's really about working together in order to produce a better community, because it doesn't really help if you say you're better than someone else. Don't really realize how much in common we have with all the discrimination that has happened, especially like with the Black Lives Matter movement. They don't really realize how much of a connection we do have. I think it was about like 10 or 20 years ago, there was a man named Vincent Chin. Vincent Chin was actually beaten to death by two Caucasian workers that just got laid off from like a Japanese motor company. And they beat the man to death, assuming that he was Japanese. He was actually Chinese. And those two men basically got off free for his murder. And that actually sparked the whole movement for the APIA, that Asian Pacific Islander American movement, just to like for solidarity within the group. And so I mean that obviously speaks wonders for how we can really relate and how we can connect with the Black Lives Matter movement. And it's like we share that same thing that happened. I mean, of course, there are different circumstances and there are different aspects of each case. But the fact that we have faced discrimination and have been given a unjust like decision, like a law decision, just kind of shows how on the same page we are with other ethnicities, and how we need to change and how we need to progress into a way where this is not an issue and this doesn't happen on a day-to-day basis.